The Congress acted. The debt deal was done. The S&P rating dropped. The president spoke. The markets dove. And here we are, so to speak, on the morning after. I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, and in the words of Scripture, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair. And today on Trifecta, we're going to show you why tomorrow is a better day and suggest a way to get there. Joining me in this shining city on a hill, my colleagues Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. Well, men, H.R. 1848 is a 10-page bill nicknamed the Mack Penny Plan. Here's Florida Congressman Connie Mack describing what his bill does.
This is very simple. What it says is that we're going to freeze spending in Washington, and then we're going to cut 1% a year for 6 years. So that's 1 penny out of every federal dollar. So over 10 years, that would cut $7.5 trillion. We'd cap spending to 18% of GDP in the 7th year. It balances the budget in 8 years. It's the only plan that's put out there that will balance the budget, and so we can begin to pay down our debt.
Now, so far, the Mack Penny Plan has 57 co-sponsors in the House. The Senate version's handful of supporters includes Marco Rubio. Even former Clinton crony Lanny Davis says it would work and wrote a column to that effect. Well, Steve, we got a debt deal, but not a solution. Given the events of the past week, do you think America is ready for a simple solution like the Mack Penny Plan?
You know, I was just saying to Tony Katz a week ago that we need to get on a glide path to fiscal sanity. Let's say that government debt is like a bone cancer in your leg. There are two ways of treating the debt problem, of getting rid of the cancer in your leg. There's not raising the debt ceiling with conditions that would be like taking an axe and hacking off your own leg without having a doctor nearby. It would have cured the cancer, but left you with a bigger, more immediate problem. The other way to go is you go into the operating room, have a surgeon open up your leg and remove the cancerous tissue. You know, it's going to be a while before you can walk again, but you are going to walk again. And that's what it looks like the Mack Plan is to me.
Well, Bill, the problem with the Mack Penny Plan is that it takes 2011 as the baseline and makes actual cuts, not just reductions in the baseline rate of growth. Now, even if the people are ready, is Congress ready? And would the president sign it?
Well, with a 17% approval rating, the idea of whether or not Congress is ready is rapidly becoming irrelevant. One of the most interesting things I've read in the last year was that somebody once described the mood in America today as pre-revolutionary. When you have 87% of the population doesn't think that the Congress is being representative of the will of the people, you're in bigger trouble even than with the budget. As far as the plan goes, I think they shouldn't call it the Mack Penny Plan. They should call it the Mack Daddy Plan because it kicks butt. It's a plan, and that's all people want. Is they want a plan. They want somebody to say, this is not just more of the same. There was a Ramirez cartoon where the U.S. economy is a jet going into the ground, a passenger jet, nose down going into the ground, and Barack Obama says, if you give me what I'll ask for, I'll come back on the throttle a little bit. Somebody says, no, Mr. President, we can't just come back on the throttle. You got to pull up. We need a plan. I'll take any plan that seems to have some kind of solution.
Well, and Steve, the Mack Penny Plan says that if the Congress and the White House can't agree on where to cut that 1 penny per dollar from the budget each year, it would trigger an across-the-board cut, exempting only interest on the national debt. Now, is that fair to beneficiaries of federal entitlement programs, or, for that matter, even for the Pentagon?
Well, there's no such thing as fair. People have been promised things that the government has no way to deliver. We're way past fair. The closest you can get to it is everybody feels the pain. Everybody suffers. You know, we've all been benefiting from all of this spending, so it's only fair, I guess, that everybody hurts a little bit on the way down. But the thing I really like about Mack's plan is we all suffer a little the smart way, or we all suffer a lot the dumb way. You know, show me somebody's incentives, and I'll show you how he'll behave. And we've been incentivizing stupid for a long time. It's time we started to incentivize smart behavior, and the Mack Plan does that.
Well, Bill, what do you think would actually happen in the United States economy and globally if the U.S. made this kind of intentional commitment?
The same thing that happens to any individual who finds himself in an enormous amount of debt. Your credit rating goes into the toilet. Our AAA credit rating should be lower than AA plus, in my opinion. With $15 trillion in debt, there's no amount of money that can pay for the amount of debt that we actually owe downstream. There's not enough money in the world. But if you have a debt problem as an individual, and you slash your spending, you maximize your revenues, and you get on a payment plan of any kind, people will realize you're serious. And the entire purpose of the Tea Party was to say to the Congress and to the country that the solution to having out-of-control debt is not to get another credit card. It's to start making payments.
Well, let's do a little flashback. In 1981, just months after he was nearly slain by a would-be assassin's bullet, President Ronald Reagan stood before a joint session of Congress to press for approval of his economic plan, which included reductions in tax rates and the rate of spending growth, some deregulation, and a more stable monetary policy. Now, we've posted a link to the full 22-minute speech below here at PJTV.com, but here's the 75-second version for you.
And the budgetary actions taken by the Congress over the next few days will determine how we respond to the message of last November 4th. That message was very simple. Our government is too big and it spends too much. Let us cut through the fog for a moment. The answer to a government that's too big is to stop feeding its growth. The old and comfortable way is to shave a little here and add a little there. Well, that's not acceptable anymore. I believe that the people you and I represent are ready to chart a new course. They look to us to meet the great challenge, to reach beyond the commonplace and not fall short for lack of creativity or courage. We can restore our economic strength and build opportunities like none we've ever had before. As Carl Sandburg said, all we need to begin with is a dream that we can do better than before. All we need to have is faith, and that dream will come true. All we need to do is act, and the time for action is now. Thank you.
Steve, the crisis then was runaway inflation, high unemployment, in addition to spiraling debt. Can you compare and contrast Reagan's problem-solving approach to that of the current president?
Well, the problems are actually very different. In 1980, we had too much liquidity, too many dollars running around in a shrinking economy. Today, we have too little liquidity. Banks and businesses are sitting on trillions of dollars, just stuffing it under the mattress. But in each case, the solution is the same. Protect the value of the dollar, reduce marginal tax rates, and unleash American entrepreneurs. It's what Reagan did. Obama is trying to cause inflation. He's raising marginal tax rates through Obamacare, and he's unleashed regulators. It's a recipe for failure, and well, you read the news, you know it's a failure.
Stephen Green hosts Hair of the Dog, the Weekend Blogs, and Coast to Coast Tea Party here on PJTV.com. Look for his trifecta this week on the president's response to the downing of a U.S. helicopter in Afghanistan. Well, Bill, a nation seems to cry out for leadership and at the same time hesitates to be led in a direction that our current president is, shall we say, meandering. Lacking this kind of Reagan-esque leader at the moment, Bill, what can our viewers do to avoid what John Bunyan called the slough of despond and to actually lift up our eyes to the hills?
Well, first of all, the reason that Reagan sounds like he's telling the truth and Barack Obama doesn't is because Ronald Reagan believes it when he says we should have limited government, less spending, and Barack Obama doesn't. Conservatives can run on what they believe in because the country likes a conservative message. Liberals have to lie, and everybody knows that when Barack Obama was elected, all the liberals went, we'll tell him he's a hawk and a conservative to fool the rubes out in the low-sloping forehead country. Listen, don't despair. What you're seeing is the end of the welfare state because the welfare state has to run out of money. How much heroin will a heroin addict do? All of it. Well, we're out of heroin. So things are going to get better.
Bill Whittle is co-founder of DeclarationEntertainment.com. He hosts Afterburner and also stars as the hirsute half of Clavin and Whittle right here on PJTV. Look for Bill's episode of Trifecta this week where we go crazy on you, Mr. President. Last week, Stephen Green right here on Trifecta told us about some kids who had built a 17-foot tall rocket capable of creasing the sky past 10,000 feet. But since the federal government imposed an 8,500-foot ceiling on their experiment, the kids added 4 retro rockets, firing toward the heavens to prevent their project from reaching its full potential. That's what the federal debt is like. These year after year aggregations of spending over revenue are not simply extra weight that drag on your prosperity. They're retro rockets firing against the trajectory of your dreams, keeping you from reaching your desired altitude. The Mack Penny plan is just a simple scheme to shrink the size of the retro rockets. By the way, the name of that ballistic marvel that Steve Green and his boys saw racing into the heavens? Stars and Stripes. For Stephen Green, Bill Whittle, and the entire Trifecta crew here at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.